Last but not least, our recommendation of the week. Well, I didn't see a bunch of other movies this week, and usually I see several things on streaming. I just didn't get around to too much this week, but I did go to the theater with my kid and see Cuckoo, another Neon release. We just had Long Legs recently, and Cuckoo is directed by Tillman Singer, who did Lose. And if you remember Lose, that's one that Eric loves and has championed, a really weirdo indie movie, horror-ish adjacent, kind of mind-bendy. And I've seen it too, and I like it quite a bit as well. I think it was on Shudder, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it still is. I should have checked. But it's probably one of those movies that by now you can probably find in a few places. But if you haven't looked at it, and this isn't Lose the Flower of Evil, this is just Lose, Luz. Look in that movie. It's a really weird one. If you like weirdo movies, it's not going to be an easy one to like comprehend, but it has some really interesting stuff. So Cuckoo, by the way, in this I might allow spoilers because Eric has already done it. Well, actually, Eric hasn't. Eric might be doing a review this week. He might have already done it. I don't know. You might have heard it already. Greg did a review last week of this movie. And I would say mostly I agree with his review. So if you want a spoiler-free review, go ahead and check that last episode of CinemAddicts or see the YouTube video that's been isolated of Greg's review. Like I'd say, I would pretty much co-sign. I might be a tiny bit higher, but I'm right in the same ballpark as him. He was a 4-star on it. I might be 4 to 4.5 stars on it. So Greg, I think, was pretty much right on and giving you enough reasons that you should check it out. I would agree with what he said. But here, I'm just going to give you my basic take on it too. Once again, you have Hunter Schafer here as Gretchen. She's kind of I think she's like the 17-year-old daughter slash stepdaughter. Essentially, she's taken by her dad, stepmom, and stepsister. They're all going to basically kind of vacation in the German Alps at this resort. The reason they're going there is her dad is involved in the designing and they're planning a new resort for the same owners. While he's helping them plan this new resort, they're going to all basically stay at this mountain lodge area. The dynamic is that Gretchen, her mom has recently died. She's been living with her mom, it looks like, in America for ever and ever and ever. But she is going to be with them because mom's gone, obviously, and she's kind of not happy. She's kind of the sullen teenager. She's playing in a band. She doesn't want to be there. She's kind of checked out. She doesn't really care too much about her little stepsister. So she's kind of just stuck at this resort. The thing that you don't quite get unless you've watched the trailers or unless you've watched the movie is as they roll up, they meet the head of the resort, Herr Koenig, who just immediately sounds like he would be like a Nazi in hiding in Argentina or something. Of course, they're not. They're in the German Alps. They're in Germany, apparently. Herr Koenig is like what? Like the grandkid of a Nazi or something. He just, even though that's not officially what he is, he just has that like very over the top like, well, hello, I am here. And this is played by Dan Stevens, and he really hams it up quite a bit. And from the get-go, he is creepy and weird and smarmy and just like he's up to no good. They're not even pretending like he's a nice normal guy, and you're gonna discover later that he's a weirdo. No, he's a weirdo right out the gate. Anyway, they come there and you've got Gretchen bored and nothing to do. So obviously, he's like, well, I'll give you a job at the front desk. You can help out. And she goes to do that. And once again, it's weirdo from the get-go. Everything around is strange, like the people are weird. Like the only people that seem to walk into the desolate place at night are like medical patients that stumble in and start vomiting on things. And you're like, what is happening? And I didn't mention the very opening sequence is you have an unrelated quick little sequence at the lodge where you see a person and you hear a weird screeching in the woods and then someone runs off into the forest, and that's kind of a harbinger of what's going to happen. So you know that there's something strange happening at this place even before you arrive with Gretchen and then the family. One thing leads to another, and essentially you're in this weirdo world. Once again, the cinematography is really great. I didn't look it up, technical stuff, but it looks to me like it's filmed on film. It has that depth and grain to it and vibrance of the colors. It just feels like film to me, and I really love the look of this movie. This also feels to me, thematically, like one of those movies, and this is why I gravitate towards this movie a little bit more than some people might. Some people might find this movie kind of silly. I kind of love two things. I love normal people going to a place where obviously something really strange is happening and everyone knows it, but no one's saying anything. So like you go to the weird town, you go to the weird whatever, and you're the normal person in the weird place, and you have to discover what weird conspiracy or what weird thing's going on. I like those kind of movies. Wicker Man, that kind of stuff. I also like mad scientist movies, mad scientist creating creature movies. And this movie is one kind of that. Because, of course, what she just comes to discover is that Herr Koenig has been cultivating, quote, cuckoos, not really cuckoos, but some kind of weird creature, kind of a humanoid creature that's not really quite human, but almost human, that lives in the mountains there. And they do this. Now this is where it's going to sound super bonkers because I'm telling you some of the things where they can make this strange screeching sound, and by doing that they can put you into a time loop and kind of freeze you mentally, so they can come in and stun you. And when they stun you, they can impregnate you or implant an egg into you like a cuckoo, so you have to raise their kid, so you raise one of their creatures instead of your actual child. And that's the weird mystery that Gretchen slowly uncovers. But as she's doing it, she's getting beat to hell. Everything that's around every corner, someone's hurting her in some way. I'm not going to get all the details. As you can see, just enough that I gave you should tell you, like, this is a weirdo movie. This is a movie that makes no logical sense. This is one where you have to take some big leaps and buy this crazy scenario. And I think it's a lot of fun to watch, because what it really ends up being is like a mystery of our main character trying to uncover this conspiracy of a mad scientist, and she's stuck in the mad scientist's lair. Now, if you can enjoy it on those terms, I think you're going to really enjoy this movie, which I did. If you can't enjoy it on those terms and it sounds cockamamie and preposterous to you, then you are not going to enjoy this movie at all. You're going to think it's silly and dumb, and you're going to be like, why did I spend all my time listening to this screeching and watch this dumbness? I guess that would be what I would say to anyone who for some reason has listened to this and now knows what the movie's about. Even knowing what it's about, I mean, it does ruin a little bit as far as like what is actually going on, but it doesn't really ruin the experience, I don't think, because the path to get there is still weird and windy and odd, and you meet characters, unusual characters all the way along. And the central role played by Hunter Schafer of Gretchen is so well done. She is like angsty teen to the nth degree, but she also is like a lot of angsty teens at her heart. She's grasping for love. Like, you have this constant thing in the movie where she's calling the answering machine where her mom had left a message, and just so she can leave a message to her obviously dead mom, she can leave a message there, and that's kind of her way to try to keep that contact and try to allay her sadness and still have that connection, because she has no connection with her step family. And I think that core, that heart of this movie is kind of pulls it forward. Her performance and that core emotion is kind of something that kind of grounds you within all of the weirdness. I will give one last thing, and that is, that would make it sound like, oh, here's another horror is dealing with grief movie. Yes, I guess a little bit in here, but I really don't think that's how this movie operates. This is more of like, one side it's basically, like I said, mad scientist movie, person stuck in a weird mad scientist situation, conspiracy. And on the other side, it's actually more about her learning to connect with somebody. I think when you think of angsty teenagers and all that kind of stuff, is that's the combination of closing yourself off the world because you're feeling so much, and you just kind of lash out by pushing people away. So really this movie is about her being able to finally connect. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil that part of the movie. But that is kind of the real thematic, I guess, through line of this movie. It's about connection and about her discovering how she can connect within this weirdness. That is what ultimately happens. And I've heard a lot of people, and I think even Greg said, didn't really like the third act that much, because I think Greg said, and I could be wrong here, I think Greg said it devolved into a little bit too weird and convoluted, although I actually think it explains a lot in the final act. And I think William Lindis from Movie Bears podcast, hope you're getting better soon, William. I know you've been having a tough time. We are thinking about you, by the way. I think William didn't really like it so much. I think he didn't like the third act because I'm not even remembering. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I know he didn't work for him. I ended up really kind of liking quite a bit. First of all, it does tend to tell you what's going on. But then one thing that works really well is there's kind of this showdown. And it would seem at first to be kind of this classic, almost like a shootout. Like, you got a good guy on one side of the room and a bad guy on the other side of the room. And they're going to see who's going to kill whom, right? Who's going to make it out alive. And it is a little bit of that, but it's a three-way standoff. And the way that three-way standoff resolves, I really liked how they figured out how to resolve that three-way standoff. And I thought that was pretty clever. And also, it also was, well, it was both clever and it was satisfying within the action moment and the kind of resolution of what was physically happening in that scene, but also was intertangled with the emotional or character denouement. Ooh, denouement. Yeah, the the character wrap up, the character resolution was resolved in how they solved that physical problem. So I think writing wise, that was a real kind of smart way of putting everything together. And I thought that made it very satisfying, like narratively. For me, I guess not so much for some people. So anyway, yeah, I think I'm gonna come down. I'm talking myself up to 4.5 stars on this one. I like this movie quite a bit. I think it's interesting to see two movies, this one and Longlegs, that involves the concept of cuckoo, but in very different ways. But the fact that they both have the idea of a cuckoo as some of a metaphorical horror. I don't know. Anyway, pretty cool movie. Check it out. No one's going to see this in the theaters, as far as I can tell. This is the opposite of Longlegs. You know, Longlegs was this kind of weird moment of everybody kind of being like interested in something at the same time, and some people hating it and some people loving it, but everyone going and seeing it. And then I don't think anyone's going and seeing Cuckoo. I don't think anyone even knows halfway what it is. I saw it in an almost abandoned theater on a Monday night in a kind of weird town, and my kid and I thought it was very fitting to see this movie there in that setting. And in fact, we walk in and it was almost desolate. And to see this movie in a desolate theater, and then just to walk up to the one person at the desk, at the counter, all the popcorn, all the stuff up there, no one's buying anything. There's one lone teller to buy the tickets from. It was almost like you were going to an isolated place to watch this movie. And the one person we said for Cuckoo, I almost felt like embarrassed, like ordering the tickets, and buying the tickets. And then she just looked up and said, like, yeah, it's a good movie. And that was it. We went in and watched it. So anyway, I'm gonna go back into my box here in the attic, the cinematic, and have a good week, everybody. We will bring you some more stuff next week. Most likely, all of us, at least some of us, will go see Alien Romulus, which has been a big, exciting movie for people. I am cautiously optimistic that it might be good. Hopefully it is. I at least will hope that it's a good foray back into the Alien universe, which I do love. All right. Have a great week, everybody.